and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Tonebase Classical Guitar Podcast. My name's David Steinhardt, and I'll be your host. Really humbled and honored to be here. I'm very excited to be running this show. Some of you may know me from my prior work with Classical Guitar and Beyond, and in regards to content, I'm going to be running things fairly similarly. We're going to have a guest artist or ensemble for each episode, mainly from the Tonebase roster, and we're going to take a listen to sample recordings and have a conversation. While typical interview questions like string and guitar choice may come up on occasion if I find it would be interesting to talk about, we're going to dive deeper into the realm of the classical guitar world, with topics ranging from pedagogical approaches, recording techniques, programming, arranging, composing, and many others. Very happy to have the great Scott Tennant as our first guest, a man who really needs no introduction. He's a founding member of the Grammy Award-winning Los Angeles Guitar Quartet, author of Pumping Nylon technique book, and of course a renowned soloist. Really one of the most sought-after guitarists of his generation. We had a fun conversation a couple weeks ago in Los Angeles, talking about his most recent solo projects, recording 2 new records with the label GuitarCoop. So let's kick things off and take a listen to an excerpt from the album Mystérieuses Barricades. This is a beautiful piece by Couperin titled Les Sylvains. just took a listen to your newest album, Mysterious Barricades. Can you tell me a little bit about that project?
Yeah, that was fun. It's something I've wanted to do for a while. You wonder, for years I was thinking it'd be nice to record some Baroque music. And I have on other, on my recital CD way back and at the GHA, on the GHA label, did some Bach on there. But I mean, like all Baroque. The thing is, everybody's done the lute suites and everybody's done Scarlatti sonatas, and I just didn't want to do the same kind of thing. Although there are some similar things on there. There's the couple, token Scarlatti sonatas, and I love Scarlatti. But so actually, my favorite style of Baroque music is French, and I've listened to so much of it, and just love the style. And these arrangements came available many years ago. Alex Dunn, who got his doctoral degree at UC San Diego, and his doctoral project was the theorbo music of Robert Debussy. And so, and this, we're talking back in like, wow, early mid 80s, like, way back. So this was something that was brand new, and this was an amazing publication. It was not only the history of and analysis of some of the theorbo music, but he published a lot of music. So some of that was published by the old guitar magazine Guitar Review, even though they got the titles mixed up on a couple of them. So anyway, he let me have some of this music, and I had it for a long time, and then I thought one point years ago, I thought, this, I still have that somewhere. And I found it, and I started looking at it, and it's all in different tunings, CG tuning, DG, etc. But wow, it was so beautiful and fun to do, and so I started programming it as a set, and then I thought, well, if I'm going to record some Baroque music, I'm going to highlight that and add a couple of my own little arrangements in there, and then do some other Baroque things. And that's how it came about. Mysterious Barricades is the title. Of course, that comes from one of the tracks, Le Barricades Mystérieuses by François Couperin, which is on the CD. So we thought it would just make a nice title.
Yeah. And if I'm correct, you recorded in Brazil for this, right?
Yeah, Guitar Co-op. They're a label that had just formed in Brazil, and an old competition buddy of mine, Marcelo Cayot, was one of the founding fathers, I guess, of that label, and he notified me about the label and what their mission was, and they wanted it to be kind of this sort of, a co-op, this sort of kind of brother sisterhood of guitarists, kind of with one goal to promote, guitar and repertoire, and they've commissioned work since for various guitarists and whatnot. So anyway, I thought I'd love to. They asked me if I wanted to be involved. I said absolutely. So they brought me down to Sao Paulo to do the recording, and great facilities down there. And the team was great. The engineer, the producers, really wonderful. And to help pay for the trip, I mean, they set up a concert for me there. I hadn't played there, and I played there probably 15 or more years prior to that. So, yeah, I went down to Brazil for that, and which is where since they're based there, they do most of the recording there. I did do this next CD, which is coming out pretty soon. We recorded that here in Los Angeles, and they were fine with that. So,
very cool. And I don't want to go off on another tangent about coffee, but I've got to ask, from a fellow coffee snob, did you have some amazing roasts out there or brews in Brazil? Or do they export all of their beans?
They export. Yeah, because that's where the money is. However, I was turned on right down the street. I mean, 2 blocks away from this amazing Jewish center that we were recording in. There was an espresso bar. And I just asked him, hey, there wouldn't be any good espresso nearby, would there? Because, I could use one. I didn't think there would be one, just because the neighborhood was kind of residential. And anyway, they said, yeah, in fact, there's a really good one down there we go to all the time. And it was great. And I don't speak Portuguese, so I don't know. I can't tell you what they were using. I'm sure they were using Brazilian beans. Maybe not. Maybe they were using African beans. I don't know. But they did a really good job. Good barista there.
It's all about good barista and good equipment. But, thing is, and, I was talking about me becoming an audiophile, and it's really occurs because I can't listen to stuff anymore, certain records and stuff. And, I'm obsessed with equipment. And it's kind of turned like that into coffee as well for me. But at the end of the day, if it tastes good, if it sounds good, that's the most important part. All these styles of guitars that are being built, and it's really fascinating learning, lattice, double top, traditional fan bracing versus these new kind of pyramidal type bracing. And it's it's fun in ways, to kind of get obsessed with all these kind of technical facts. But at the end of the day, it tastes good or it sounds good. That's the most important part for me.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true.
And back to your album, I would love to hear about your approach to Couperin. He is one of my favorite composers from that time period. And, not too many guitarists play his repertoire, which is really too bad. And I really felt you had just such a great interpretation of that music, being harpsichord music to begin with. I'm not sure what you're doing exactly, if you have a different approach with trills or just kind of the right hand textures and everything to kind of match the style of music better, because harpsichord's a very, very, very different sound as opposed to doing arrangement of a violin sonata.
True. Yes. Well, there were a couple tunes on there that were harpsichord. Some of the theorbo things that I recorded that came from Robert Devisay, they were by these arrangements that he did for the theorbo were from different composers like François Couperin, Lully, and also some original tunes in this collection too. The thing is, Baroque was the Baroque style. I guess if you want to call it a style or a practice, practice is probably a better term in this case, was to borrow. And so just like we do today, play our favorite hit tunes on a guitar or ukulele even. I mean, some amazing ukulele players out there doing some Beethoven and Mozart and just,
It's crazy.
And the thing is, if you like it and can make it work and get the essence, distill the essence of it, it's going to come across nicely. And so the practice of doing some of these orchestral works even on the theorbo, I think Devisay really captured the essence of these pieces really well, especially the overture of the Grotte de Versailles by Lully is originally for orchestra. It's an overture. And so Devisay really captured that really well. And then Alex Dunn, who did the transcriptions, kept that. So it really filtered down nicely. The approach, I don't know. I tried to not do any cross-string trills, or very few in the pieces I knew were lute or theorbo. Mm-hmm. For the harpsichord arrangements or transcriptions, I would freely, do open string. Not that I'm trying to imitate a harpsichord, but I know that stylistically it's good. But with the things that say they were originally written for the theorbo or the lute, there's a suite by Weiss in there, for instance. Yeah. Having spoken a lot with Paul Audette, who we all love and respect greatly, nowadays I try to steer clear of doing cross-string trills on an original lute piece or theorbo repertoire, just because they didn't do it. It was all left-hand ornamentation. And you know what? I think it really lends itself better. I love cross-string trills, and you can put them in anything. But generally speaking, if it's harpsichord, I can throw them in. But if not, I usually don't. And in this case, this was a good chance for me to really experiment with that, because it's really tempting to throw on these cross string trills because they sound so cool. But I resisted. So my approach to the Couperin in this case was to allow cross string trills, some of them in the mysterious Barricades, but in the Debussy tune, I try to avoid them. The François Couperin arrangement he has in there.
You don't want Paul to be calling you at 3 in the morning.
No, I do not. No.
Well, I mean, I doubt he would do that. He's such a sweet person.
I think Paul is appreciative. I think if it sounds good and it works.
Yeah.
You know.
So, tell me about this new CD. I'm not exactly sure if it'll be released by the time I'm releasing this podcast, but it's a very exciting project that you have.
It was fun to do. It took a while, and it started. First of all, let me describe it. The project is, it's a CD for Guitar Co-op, and it's called the Segovia Sessions. And it started with me going over to the guitar salon here in Los Angeles and trying out some of the guitars in this new collection they just acquired. And in this collection was Ramirez and the thing about this collection, by the way, was that it was unique. It wasn't a pristine, spotless collection. These are guitars that players actually used.
They're not just collector's instruments.
No, that's the thing. These guitars were played by some players, Bream and Williams and Segovia, Carlovaro, etc. So at the end of the session, I tried a few guitars and they recorded some sound samples on a couple of them, and he was packing up. Kai was packing up the sound equipment and said, "By the way, there's this Ramirez. I don't know if you want to try it or not. I realized that I was going to show it to you, and I forgot. And I was pretty tired. I said, I don't know, Kai. Maybe, I don't know." And I said, "Is it really good?" And he goes, "I don't know. I haven't seen it. It's right over there." And I said, "Okay, sure, I'll try it." And I just to do something while he was packing up. And so I'm left alone there on the bench, just, trying this guitar out. And I'm rarely instantly blown away by an instrument, but I was sitting there playing this instrument thinking it went beyond thinking that this is so good. I was actually thinking of, how can I get this guitar? This could be my one guitar for everything I ever do the rest of my life. And I can't describe the qualities really that I was experiencing, just to say that it wasn't easy to play. I mean, it was a big guitar. It is a big guitar, because Segovia had big hands. It was made for him.
665 scale length or something like that?
I think it's up there, 664.
Or maybe even bigger, yeah. Probably 664. I think that was kind of the Madrid scale length back.
Yeah, but it's also very wide, and then the string spacing is quite wide. And it was made by Antonio Martinez, who was one of the builders in Ramirez's shop, apprentices at the time. So anyway, I was blown away by this guitar. And I remember thinking, instead of, trying to figure out how I can buy this, because they probably had a buyer for it already, I didn't know. I said, "Ooh, let's do a recording on this. Let's do a project. I don't know what it's going to be, but let's just do something." And GSI got wind of that very quickly and said, "Yeah, absolutely, let's do it." So turned out I was going to do just Segovia repertoire, I was lucky enough to play for him twice, and of course we had to play all his repertoire. And I played one of his original compositions for him in a masterclass, Studio Sin Luz. And so I thought I'd maybe record that along with a few other of his own compositions, but maybe some Ponce or Taroba and some other things that composers that he had friendship with. So the more I thought, and I proposed that to Guitar Co-op, and they liked the idea. So the more I thought about it, I thought, is there really enough Segovia original music to make a CD? And I didn't think there was. But then there's all this hidden music. Most of them are short. There's nothing longer than, I think, 6 or 7 minutes. Mm-hmm. But there was enough. There was more than enough. In fact, we had to cut some because... So this is not the complete Segovia These aren't the complete Segovia compositions, but close to it.
Okay.
And anyway, I started reading through some of this music, and I was just blown away because he was a great composer. I mean, he not great in terms of magnitude like a Shostakovich or anything, but he really had an unbelievable talent for writing short pieces in the style of Sor, Ravel, Debussy, Scriabin. I mean,
Yeah.
Brahms. And then there was a little Segovia in there now and then that you could sense.
No, because everyone knows Segovia for his arrangements and his collaborations with these composers and the Ponce letters and everything. But I think a lot of times we do kind of forget how beautiful a composer he could be. I mean, most people know his studio at St. Louis, but I'm embarrassed to say that's actually the only one I know. So I'm super psyched to hear this album. I think it's really going to be a fun lesson, and it's going to kind of, no pun intended, it's going to bring some light. Sorry, I've been studying with Bill too much.
Studio con luz. Compact disc con luz.
But it's going to bring some light, I think, into the compositions and of Segovia, to really show that aspect to people who aren't totally aware.
And that's a great thing. You know about the Studio St. Louis probably because that's one of that and Remembranza, another tune of his. Those are the only ones he really ever programmed once in a while. One thing he was actually quite humble about, I found, was his own compositions. You know, as you know, let's face it, you know, self-aware, let me just be nice and say self-aware of his greatness as he was.
That's a very nice way to put it.
In promoting the guitar and himself. And, you know, I mean, we wouldn't be solo guitarists today if it weren't for him.
Absolutely.
There were others, but Barrios didn't have the world scope that he had. Let's face it. So anyway, he focused most of his time on spreading the guitar and doing as much of a variety as he could of repertoire. Little bits of Bach, little bits of Mozart, little bits of Brahms, and then Taroba and Ponce and people that he knew. So his pieces were he just kind of wrote as an outlet and never ever promoted. In fact, when I played the Studio St. Louis for him in his master class at USC in 1986, he gave obviously some good comments and told a story or two about it. But then the last thing he said was, when it was time for me to go back to my seat, he said, "Now, young man, now please suppress this piece."
Huh. And
he kind of chuckled, and I knew what he was saying was basically, don't make a big deal out of this piece. Just, play other things. Don't play this piece type of thing.
That's really interesting, because Segovia was so driven to bring respect into our instrument. And I think maybe he kind of thought, maybe, I can't believe I'm saying this, but humbly thought that his compositions, were nice, but wouldn't bring more respect necessarily to the instrument, as opposed to bringing out all these arrangements and commissioning works from these great composers and everything. It's
right.
Never thought of that. It's really fascinating. Back to the actual instrument, I've got to ask. So when Kai said, "Oh, I've got a Ramirez in the back," blah blah blah. When you tried it the first time, did you know that was Segovia's old guitar?
Yeah, he told me.
Oh, okay.
He told me 1969. This was Segovia's instrument. We have proof of that. We have pictures of him playing it and all that, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Of course, he had many Ramirez's, and during his day, as well as a Hauser or two at least, and Fleitas, and But it didn't blow me away because it was Segovia's, although that was part of the kind of historic, kind of nostalgia feeling, this tingling you get when you're playing it.
Yeah.
But gosh, that scratch, that's probably Segovia's nail that did that. No, it was just the fact that it was a great guitar. And so anyway, we went ahead with the plan. I learned as much stuff as I could, and we recorded it at USC. I didn't want to go to Brazil to do this recording just because not only was it not my guitar, it had been, during this time of figuring out the CD, it had been purchased by a collector, an anonymous collector, who was nice enough to keep it here. In fact, it's still here.
Yeah.
Who was nice enough to keep it here for me to do this project. And so I didn't want to take it to Brazil and risk anything. So we did it here, and it worked great. Did it at Camilleri Hall at USC, which is a beautiful sounding hall. And the guitar sounded great, the equipment, everything just came together so nicely. And I'm really happy with this project, even though it's a niche kind of a project. 5 or 10 people might actually buy the disc at some point, but I'm really, really proud of what we did.
I think it's going to be a gem. I really do. And I'm glad you didn't fly with that instrument. First of all, the different humidities and everything.
Well, given the experiences you've had recently.
Yeah, British Airways, if you're listening to this, you.
Ooh, yes.
But you just it's definitely dangerous. Well, not dangerous, but it's kind of scary. Flying with guitars, and honestly, I've got it to a point where I've thought about buying a soloist. Unless if I'm traveling and I'm going to perform something, I think I might just take a soloist, just avoid that stress. It
might make you check it.
Yeah, but that's that would be pretty hilarious if I
check a soloist.
Check a solo. Oh my God, that would make me.
Well, sir, it's a guitar.
We don't allow guitars on our planes.
That's the line I got. Sir, we just don't allow musical instruments on board. And so.
And you look at those closets that all these business class travelers have, or first class for their jackets, and it's like, oh, we don't have room, and you take a peek, and there's tons of room. There's like one jacket in a whole closet.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's what it is. And this summer, you had to travel a little bit with 2 guitars. I saw you've acquired a new instrument. I'm sure you have quite a collection of guitars. But you're telling me now you kind of have 3 or 4 kind of main axes, and they're all kind of different build styles.
Yeah. I've never been a collector, and I don't want to be a collector. I love guitars, and in fact, I love them too much to just have them sitting around and when I'm not around or not being played. I keep guitars that I play. And so I did acquire a guitar unexpectedly in Germany, coming back, in Germany there this summer. And this summer, earlier in the summer, late spring, I was lucky enough to purchase a 1979 Daniel Friedrich, who's my favorite builder of all time. I used to have, I've had 2 of them in the past, and one I had way back in like 1990 or so. I had to sell it because of a car wreck, and I was crushed by that. Oh, not by the car wreck. I was crushed by the fact that I had to sell.
Yeah,
because I had literally negative money at that time because I bought this Friedrich, which is my pride and joy.
But the guitar was okay.
The guitar was fine.
Okay, yeah. So at least it wasn't.
The guitar was in the car at the time.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But still, it's quite sad.
I was really lucky to come across. So I took that to Europe and played, was touring on that. And then this other guitar came available. I just thought, I got to get this. And so, So now I have, the 3 main axes that I'm using now are, I have a lattice brace guitar, a spruce guitar by Philip Woodfield. That's really my main axe. I've also got a cedar, but the spruce is really my main axe. And then the Friedrich, which is very traditional as you can be. And then this new one by Achim Gropius from Germany. It's a double top, double spruce top, and it's just beautiful and very unique. So I kind of have one of each style.
And I find those double spruce tops, before I played one, I kind of expected it to be ultra bright. They have this really kind of creamy, sensitive sound and tonal quality to them.
That's a good way to. Yeah. This is totally creamy a sound. It's not what you'd expect
with 2 spruce.
Yeah,
because you would think, oh my God, that's going to be so bright or whatever.
Right. No, it's not. It's just very rich, actually.
And I know you're saying the Woodfield's kind of the main axe of these 3, but do you find you kind of when you're deciding what to play on, I don't know if it's just something like, oh, I'll play this guitar today to have fun, or do you kind of pick whatever guitar you're performing on kind of based off of the concert situation, whether it's, a solo concert of maybe your French Baroque set, or if you're playing with the quartet? Is there kind of a thought process that goes behind it?
There is. Yeah, I mean, when I'm home for a stretch, I like, taking out, I mean, I have other guitars than those three I mentioned. But, I like to take them out and play them maybe a few days here on that one, a few days on this one. But when I'm ready to go on a tour, whether it's myself or the quartet, I really have to start practicing on that guitar. 'Cause as you know, you might finger things differently or play harder, play softer. So,
and every guitar in a way kind of has a different technique required out of it to produce kind of the optimal sound. Very subtle. I don't want to make it sound like this guitar, you have a right hand like Parkening, and this guitar, you have a right hand like David Russell, but they are kind of, I find, very subtle changes you kind of have to be careful with.
No, you have to adjust. So I do practice on whatever I'm going to travel with, yeah.
Thank you, Scott, for being on the show. And thank you to all you listeners for tuning in. Just in case if anyone was a little confused about my salty attitude towards British Airways, I flew with them this past summer, and over the course of just a month and 2 trips, they lost my guitar twice. Don't worry, instrument eventually came back in one piece, but it was definitely a bit of a stressful time, so highly recommend flying with another airline if you're carrying your instrument with you. I hope you can join me in a couple weeks for a conversation with the renowned performer and teacher Giudice Priore. Really excited that I got my hands on a little preview for Scott's Segovia record, which is titled the Segovia Sessions. I highly recommend heading over to www.guitarcoop.com.br. And by the way, co-op is just spelled C-O-O-P for the URL. You can purchase the Segovia record here, Mysterious Barricades, along with all the other albums from the label. So please check them out. This is Scott playing on the world-class Ramirez guitar we were talking about earlier, piece by Segovia himself titled Macarena, and it's the opening track to the CD. I'm David Steinhardt, and we'll see you next time for the Tone Base Classical Guitar Podcast.